We have to
Garrett
leave.
Riggs McCoy
Now.
was
But
locking
why?
up
I'm
Riggs
scared.
Roadhouse
Trust
when he
me,
heard
take my hand.
footsteps
Okay,
on
but
frozen
promise
gravel.
we'll be safe.
11:23 p.m., 12 degrees middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. A 7-year-old in purple pajamas stood in his parking lot barefoot and shaking, holding something silver tightly in her face. "Mommy's in the box," she whispered to her. Wait, took her to the place. "She threw me this so I'd know." She opened her hand. A wedding ring. For 2.3 miles, Violet Bennett had run through below-zero temperatures following her mother's final message. What she told Riggs next, and what 140 Brothers would discover in State Game Lands 93 would expose a man who'd done this before, and a system that had looked the other way. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. Now, back to Violet's story. "Mommy's in the box." The words came out in white vapor clouds, a barefoot child's voice cutting through the rumble of Harleys idling outside Riggs Roadhouse. 11:23 p.m. The temperature had dropped to 12 degrees Fahrenheit, wind chill at 4, and standing in the gravel parking lot, purple fleece pajamas soaked through with snow, feet leaving small red prints on frozen ground, holding something silver in her trembling fist, was a little girl who shouldn't be alive. Garrett Riggs McCoy had been locking the bar's front door when he heard the crunch of footsteps on ice. Turned expecting a drunk brother who'd forgotten something. Found a child instead. 6 feet 3 inches, 240 pounds, gray-streaked beard, leather vest with patches that read Hell's Angels and Road Captain. 44 years of hard living etched into scarred knuckles and a face that made strangers cross the street. But Riggs had also spent 7 years volunteering at Children's Hospital every Tuesday, reading to kids who were dying. Kids who reminded him of the daughter he'd lost to leukemia when she was 9. Kids who saw past the scary exterior to the gentle giant underneath. So when this tiny girl looked up at him with dark brown eyes that held more terror than any child should know, Riggs didn't see a problem. He saw his daughter. Saw every sick kid he'd ever read to. Saw someone's baby freezing to death in a parking lot while asking for help. He dropped to one knee, made himself smaller, less threatening. "Hey there, sweetheart." His voice came out soft despite the gravel texture years of cigarettes had left behind. "You're safe now. What's your name?" "Violet." The word shook. Her whole body shook. "Violet Bennett. I'm 7. My stepdad locked Mommy in a big metal box in the woods, and she's gonna die, and nobody helped us. And I ran, and you're the only place with lights on. And please," the words tumbled out in one desperate breath before her voice broke completely. Riggs looked at her feet. Bare, blue-tinged toes, frostbite forming. Looked at her pajamas, soaked, no coat. Looked at her face, streaked with frozen tears and pure desperation. Looked at what she held in her fist. A silver wedding ring with a small blood stain on the band. 3 seconds. That's how long it took Riggs to make the calculation every parent makes when a child asks for help. Is this real, or is this a mistake? Then he saw her feet again, the red prints in the snow, the way her toes had gone from blue to gray. "How far did you run?" he asked quietly. "From home." Violet's teeth chattered so hard she could barely speak. 2.3 miles. "I counted the street signs like Mommy taught me. I broke my bedroom window. Climbed down the porch roof. He doesn't know I'm gone yet. He thinks I'm sleeping, but I heard him Thursday night on the phone in the garage. He said it's happening Saturday night. Weather's perfect. Storm coming in. Temps dropping below 0. Riggs felt ice that had nothing to do with January's slide down his spine. "What else did he say, Violet?" "He said the box is ready. I'll put her in around 6 p.m., drive her out to the spot. By Sunday morning, when I discover she's missing, she'll already be gone. Hypothermia takes 8 to 10 hours in those temps." Violet's voice was eerily steady now. "Reciting memorized horror," he said. "Then it's just waiting. Maybe she's found in spring. Maybe never. Either way, it's ruled exposure. Accidental death. I'm the grieving widower." Then he said, "Yeah, $475,000 from the policy, plus the $41,000 left from her money. Over $500,000. Split 2 ways like we agreed. Then you and me were gone. New life out west." Then he said her voice finally broke. He said, just like with Rebecca, "Nobody questioned that one. Nobody will question this. The parking lot went absolutely silent. Even the idling Harleys seemed to quiet, engines holding their breath. Riggs looked at this 7-year-old child, this baby who'd run 2.3 miles barefoot through below-zero temperatures, who'd memorized her stepfather's murder plan, who'd found the only building with lights on in a rural Pennsylvania town at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. Found a biker bar. Found Hell's Angels. Found the people everyone else feared. What did he put your mommy in a box? Riggs asked, his voice deadly calm. 5:47 p.m. Violet opened her fist, showed the wedding ring. She threw this out the truck window before he locked her in. I found it in our driveway at 6:15 when I snuck out to look. It's from her first husband, my real daddy. He died 2 years ago. She never takes it off. She threw it so I'd know. So I'd tell someone. Riggs took the ring gently from her palm, looked at the blood stain, looked at Violet's face, did the math. 5:47 p.m. to 11:23 p.m., 5 hours, 36 minutes. If Wade's timeline was accurate, 8 to 10 hours until hypothermia death, Cassandra Bennett had between 2.5 to 4.5 hours remaining. Maybe less if the cold accelerated faster than Wade calculated. Where's the box? Riggs was already pulling out his phone. State Game Lands 93, for 0.7 miles northeast of town. Violet pulled a crumpled paper from her pajama pocket. Crayon drawing House Road, Big Tree, Landmark Creek, X-mark box. I drew a map. Mommy taught me how to read maps in case of emergency. She said emergencies mean you have to be smart, not scared. Riggs looked at this child, at her ruined feet, at her soaked pajamas, at the map drawn in crayon by a 7-year-old who'd understood her mother was going to die unless someone acted, at the ring in his palm, at the blood stain that meant Cassandra had fought. He stood, pulled off his thermal jacket, left him in just a t-shirt in 12 degrees weather, but he didn't care. Wrapped it around Violet. It dragged on the ground, sleeves hanging past her hands, but it was warm. Smelled like leather and motor oil and safety. Violet Bennett, Riggs said, looking her directly in the eyes. Listen to me very carefully. Your mom is not dying tonight. You hear me? Every single one of my brothers is going to search those woods until we bring her home alive. I don't care if it takes all night. I don't care if we have to tear apart every acre of forest between here and the county line. We're bringing her back. And that man who hurt her, he's never going to touch either of you again. That's not a promise I make lightly. That's a promise I keep. Violet stared at him, then burst into tears. Not scared tears anymore. Relief tears. You believe me? Her voice was so small. I believe you. And now you're going to let me finish what you started. Riggs scooped her up in one motion. She weighed maybe 50 pounds, frozen, hypothermic. Kicked open the roadhouse door. Inside, 2 brothers were cleaning up after closing. Wrench wiping down the bar. Track stacking chairs. Track first aid kit. Thermal blankets now. Riggs's command voice cut through the space. Wrench, get every brother within 30 miles on the phone. Tell them we got a mother locked in a metal chest in Game Lands 93, hypothermia timeline, and a 7-year-old who just ran 2.3 miles barefoot to ask for help. Both men froze for exactly 1 second, then moved. Track grabbed the emergency kit from behind the bar. Wrench already had his phone out, fingers flying across the screen. Riggs set Violet down gently on the bar top. Track wrapped thermal blankets around her, checked her feet, his face going grim. At the frostbite. We need to warm her slowly, Track said. He'd been Army Ranger, medic trained. Too fast, and we do more damage. Give me lukewarm water. Not hot. Lukewarm. Wrench returned with a basin of water. Violet whimpered when Track placed her feet in it, but he kept talking to her in a low, calm voice about how brave she was, how good she was doing, how her mommy would be so proud. Riggs stepped aside, pulled up his phone, hit the number labeled Virex. 1 ring, 2 Riggs. The voice on the other end was rough with sleep. This better be Virex. It's an emergency. Riggs cut him off. I need every brother we've got. Full patch, prospects, hangarounds, everyone. State Game Lands 93, Northeast Access Road now. A pause. Then what's happening? 7-year-old just ran 2.3 miles barefoot through below-zero temps to report her mother's been locked in a metal tool chest in the woods by her stepfather. Mother's been in there since 5:47 p.m., It's now 11:31. Hypothermia timeline puts her at maybe 3 to 4 hours max before cardiac arrest. Stepfather's planning to report her missing Sunday morning claim she wandered off during argument. Collect $475,000 in life insurance. Silence. Then Virex's voice came back. All business. How reliable is the witness? She's 7 years old, and she broke her bedroom window to escape. She memorized her stepfather's phone conversation about the murder plan. She's got her mother's wedding ring with blood on it, and tracks treating her for frostbite right now because she ran 2.3 miles in pajamas and bare feet to find help. Riggs's voice was steel reliable. Say no more. We're coming. The line went dead. Riggs turned back to Violet. Track at her feet, wrapped now, was giving her small sips of warm water. Her shivering was lessening, color coming back to her face. Violet Riggs knelt in front of her again. I need you to tell me everything you know about where your mom is. Everything. For the next 8 minutes, Violet talked, and the brothers listened about the house at 1847 Ridgemont Trail. About Wade Garrett, construction foreman, volunteer firefighter, church deacon, good guy who everyone trusted. About how he'd charmed Cassandra 19 months ago after her first husband died. How he'd slowly isolated her, moved her away from family, took her phone, broke her car, controlled all the money from her settlement, $263,000 that Wade had spent down to $41,000 gambling and supporting a girlfriend named Bryn. About CPS visiting 7 weeks ago after Violet told a school counselor, "My stepdad hurt my mommy." About the investigator believing Wade over Cassandra. About the case being closed as unfounded. About the police officer who came when a neighbor heard screaming, who accepted Cassandra's "I'm fine" without questioning it, who filed a report as verbal argument only about the pastor who told Cassandra marriage is sacred when she tried to ask for help, who believed Wade's claim that Cassandra was unstable from grief about the protection from abuse order. Cassandra tried to file about the judge who denied it because there was no arrest, no conviction, no documented medical evidence. About how the system had failed them for separate times over 5 months. About how Violet's mommy had a cracked rib. Wade wouldn't let her get treated. Had rope burns on her wrist for being restrained. Had a torn fingernail from fighting when Wade forced her into the chest. About Rebecca Lynn Garrett, Wade's first wife who died in January 2019, exactly 6 years ago, same month. Single vehicle accident. Car into icy river. $180,000 insurance payout. Investigation ruled accidental despite suspicious elements. Rebecca's sister had told police Rebecca was planning to leave Wade. He killed her too, Violet whispered. I heard him tell his girlfriend. He said just like with Rebecca, nobody questioned that one. The roadhouse had filled while Violet talked. Riggs looked up to find 20 brothers standing in silence, listening to a 7-year-old detail her stepfather's murder plot. Virex stood near the door. 61 years old, gray beard to his chest, patches reading. President. Behind him, more brothers filed in 30, 40, 50. The rumble of motorcycles outside was constant now. Engines cutting off, boots on gravel, leather and chrome filling the parking lot. Virex walked to where Violet sat, wrapped in thermal blankets, knelt like Riggs had, made himself small for a scared child. Violet. My name is Victor. Everyone calls me Virex. I'm the president of this club. That means when I say something's going to happen, it happens. You understand? Violet nodded. We're going to find your mother. We're going to bring her home. And we're going to make sure the man who hurt her faces justice, not violence, not revenge. Justice, the kind that comes with handcuffs and prison cells and judges who actually listen. He paused. Can you be brave for a little longer? How much longer? Maybe 2 hours, maybe 3, however long it takes. Violet looked at Riggs back to Virex. Around the room, at 50 massive bikers in leather vests, all watching her with expressions that were somehow both terrifying and gentle. Will you stay with me? She asked Riggs. No, Riggs said gently, because I'm going to be in those woods finding your mom. But track here. He gestured to the former ranger. He's going to stay with you. He's got 2 daughters about your age. He knows how to take care of scared kids. And Doc Patricia's on her way. She used to be an ER nurse. She'll make sure you're okay while we work. You promise you'll find her? I promise. Violet took a shaking breath, reached into her pajama pocket, pulled out a small plastic figure. Spider-Man paint chipped. Well loved. Mommy gave me this when Daddy died. She said Spider-Man protects people. That's what heroes do. They protect. She held it out to Riggs. You take it for luck. Bring her home. Riggs took the toy, closed his massive fist around it gently, tucked it into his vest pocket right over his heart. I'll give it back to you when your mom's safe. Deal. Deal. V-Rex stood, turned to the assembled brothers. His voice carried like a command. Brothers, a 7-year-old child just ran over 2 miles barefoot in below-zero temperatures to ask us for help. She did what 4 different authorities failed to do. She saw wrong, and she acted. Now it's our turn. He held up Violet's crayon map. State game lands 93 for 0.7 miles northeast. We're looking for a 6x3 metal tool chest, probably Joe Box brand, industrial grade. Woman inside, named Cassandra Bennett. 31 years old, 5 feet 4 inches, approximately 118 pounds. She's been in there since 5:47 p.m. Current time is 11:42. That gives us maybe 3 to 4 hours before hypothermia becomes fatal. He looked around the room. Track, you're staying with Violet. Dot Patricia's en route. You coordinate medical care for the child. Reaper, you pull every record you can on Wade Thomas Garrett. Accident reports on Rebecca Garrett from 2019. Death certificates, insurance policies, CPS reports, everything. Smoke, you're on digital. Find a girlfriend, Bryn. Find the bank records. Find the evidence. V-Rex's voice hardened. Everyone else, you're with me. We're splitting into search teams. Military grid pattern. Every acre of those woods gets covered. We find that chest. We bring Cassandra Bennett home alive, and we document every single thing we find, because when we hand this to the authorities, it's going to be airtight. What about the stepfather? A voice called from the back. Younger brother, maybe 30. Patches reading gunner. Wade Garrett is at his house right now, thinking he's gotten away with murder. V-Rex said coldly. He thinks his wife is dying in the woods, and his stepdaughter is asleep in her room. He doesn't know Violet escaped. He doesn't know we're coming. And by the time he figures it out, it'll be too late. He paused. Let that sink in. But we do this right. Legal smart. We're not vigilantes. We're witnesses. We're rescuers. We're the people who step in when the system fails. We find evidence. We document it. We turn it over to authorities who will actually act. Clear. Clear. The response was unanimous. Then let's move. Every second we waste talking is a second Cassandra. Bennett doesn't have. The brothers poured out of the roadhouse like a coordinated military operation. Engines roared to life. Riggs pulled on his leather vest, took the thermal jacket back from Violet, left her wrapped in blankets with Track. Doc Patricia arrived as they were mounting up. 53 years old, former ER nurse, current sergeant at arms. She took one look at Violet's feet and face and immediately started issuing medical directives to Track. Riggs caught her eye. Keep her safe. With my life, Patricia promised. Then Riggs was on his Harley. V-Rex beside him. Behind them, a wave of motorcycles that would later be described by witnesses as like rolling thunder. By the time they reached the access road to State Game Lands 93, they numbered 140 riders. Detroit Chapter Flint, Grand Rapids, Lansing. Every brother within a 75-mile radius who could move had moved. The formation pulled in tight, disciplined, parked in organized rows. Engines died one by one until the only sound was whined through bare trees and boots on frozen ground. V-Rex held up Violet's map, pulled out a tactical flashlight. Riggs, you know this area? Hunted here 20 years ago. There's a creek that runs northeast about a mile in. Maintenance roads every half mile. If Wade wanted somewhere isolated but accessible by vehicle, he'd use the old logging paths. Then that's where we start. They split into 7 teams of 20. Each team assigned a grid section. Each team had a tracker, military or hunting experience, a medic, combat or civilian trained, a documenter, photos, video, GPS coordinates, brothers who knew the woods. Riggs led Team 1 with V-Rex. Track's twin brother, Hound, brought his retired police K9 Bella. The German Shepherd had been following scent trails for 12 years. They gave Bella the wedding ring to smell. She caught the scent immediately, pulled toward the northeast quadrant, nose to ground, breath coming in white clouds. She's got something, Hound said quietly. The teams moved out. The search pattern unfolded with the precision of men who'd spent years riding in formation. 20 brothers per team, spread 50 feet apart, moving in synchronized lines through frozen woods. Flashlight beams cutting through darkness. Breath visible in the below-zero air. The crunch of boots on snow, the only sound beyond wind through bare branches. Bella pulled Hound forward, nose tracking something invisible to human senses. The dog moved with purpose, not the wandering of a search, but the direct line of a scent trail found and followed. Team 1 followed. Riggs checked his watch. 12:17 a.m., 7 hours, 30 minutes since Cassandra had been sealed in that chest. If Wade's calculation was correct, 8 to 10 hours until hypothermia death, they had maybe 30 minutes to 3 hours remaining. Maybe cold accelerated things. Metal conducted heat away from the body faster than ground exposure. The weather forecast had predicted temperatures dropping to -2 by 4 a.m. They didn't have hours. They had minutes. Bella stopped abruptly, sat. The signal for target found. Hound knelt beside his dog, hand on her head. Good girl. Show me. The shepherd moved forward 10 more feet. Stopped at what looked like a natural pile of brush and fallen branches. Sat again. But the pile was too uniform, too deliberate. Riggs moved forward, pulled away branches, found canvas tarp underneath, covered in snow. Pulled the tarp aside, and there it was, a 6-foot Joe Box tool chest, industrial grade, heavy-duty padlock on the front, metal surface coated with ice. FedEx. Riggs's voice cut through the night. We've got it. Brothers converged from all directions. 20 became 40, became 60, forming a perimeter around the chest. Flashlights creating a circle of light in the dark woods. Virex knelt beside the chest, put his ear against the metal for 5 seconds. Absolute silence. Every brother holding his breath. Then Virex's face changed. I hear breathing. Shallow, slow, but breathing. Riggs was already pulling bolt cutters from his pack. Every team carried tools. Stand back. The padlock was heavy-duty, commercial. Grade, the kind meant to secure expensive equipment, the kind meant to keep someone trapped. Riggs positioned the bolt cutters. Squeezed. The metal resisted. He adjusted his grip, braced his feet, squeezed harder. His arms shook with effort. The cold made the metal brittle, but also made his hands numb. Let me, Virex said, adding his strength to the handles. Together, they bore down. The lock held for 3 seconds. 4, 5, then snapped with a crack that echoed through the woods. Riggs threw the bolt cutters aside, grabbed the chest lid, Virex beside him. They lifted. The hinges were frozen, fought them, but adrenaline and desperation won. The lid rose. Inside, barely visible under a thin emergency blanket that had done almost nothing against the cold, was Cassandra Bennett, 31 years old, 5 feet 4 inches, maybe 118 pounds, but looked smaller, curled on her side in fetal position, gray wool sweater, faded jeans, white sneakers, dark brown hair matted against her skull. Her face was gray, lips blue, eyes closed, skin waxy, frost on her eyelashes. She wasn't moving. Patricia, Virex shouted into his radio. We found her. Critical. Get Doc Miller moving. We're bringing her out now. A brother pushed forward. This one with patches reading Doc and the calm, assessing eyes of medical training. Raymond Doc Kowalski, retired paramedic, 52 years old, had seen more trauma than most ER physicians. He dropped to his knees beside the chest, pressed 2 fingers to Cassandra's neck, waited 10 seconds that felt like 10 years. Pulse present, weak, maybe 40 beats per minute. Breathing shallow. Core temperature is going to be critical. Doc pulled a thermal blanket from his pack, began wrapping Cassandra without moving her from the chest. We can't warm her too fast, or we'll send her into cardiac arrest. We need controlled rewarming. Hospital now. How do we move her? Riggs asked. Very carefully. Don't jar her. Don't try to straighten her limbs. They're probably rigid from cold. We transport her exactly as she is. For brothers stepped forward. Gunner, Wrench, Snake, Diesel. All big men, all moving with surprising gentleness. They lifted Cassandra, still curled in her fetal position, blanket wrapped around her, and carried her like something infinitely precious toward the access road where vehicles waited. Riggs stayed behind, looked into the chest Cassandra had spent 11 hours for minutes trapped inside. Metal interior, no padding, no insulation, condensation frozen on the inside walls, and scratches, deep scratches where fingernails had clawed at the lid, where someone had fought, had tried to escape, had failed. He photographed everything with his phone, time-stamped, geotagged, then pulled out the Spider-Man figure from his vest pocket, set it carefully on the lid of the chest, a marker, a symbol, evidence that someone had cared enough to act. Then he ran to catch up with the brothers, carrying Cassandra toward the road. The convoy that left State Gamelands 93 at 12:34 a.m. was unlike anything Pike County had seen. 4 brothers in a truck with Cassandra laid across the back seat. Doc monitoring her vitals, speaking quietly into his phone with the ER physician at Pike County Hospital. Behind them, 140 motorcycles in tight formation. They rolled through Pine Ridge Township at 1 a.m., windows lit up as the thunder of engines woke sleeping residents. People looked out to see the wave of leather and chrome moving with purpose through their quiet town. By the time they reached the hospital, Cassandra's core body temperature had been measured at 89.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Stage 2 hypothermia. The ER physician, Dr. Raymond Kowalski, no relation to Doc, took one look at her condition and immediately called for warming protocols. Another 2 hours in those conditions, she wouldn't have made it. Dr. Kowalski told Virex quietly in the hallway while Cassandra was being treated. Below 82 degrees, cardiac arrest becomes likely. She's at 89 now. We caught her in time. Virex nodded once. Then I need you to document every injury, every bruise, every mark, every sign of abuse. Photograph. Everything. This is going to court. Dr. Kowalski's expression hardened. Already doing it. While Cassandra received treatment, the real work began. Reaper had spent the past 2 hours pulling records. Now he stood in the hospital waiting room, commandeered by Hell's Angels' 60 brothers, filling every chair and lining the walls with a laptop and a grim expression. Rebecca Lynn Garrett Reaper said, pulling up files. Wade's first wife died January 14th, 2019, exactly 6 years and 4 days ago. Single vehicle accident. Car went off Henderson Bridge into icy water. She was 28 years old. He turned the laptop so everyone could see. Death certificate, accident report, insurance payout documentation, official cause of death, drowning secondary to vehicular accident. But here's what's interesting. Reaper scrolled. Life insurance policy on Rebecca was $50,000 for the first 3 years of their marriage. Then 9 weeks before her death, Wade increased it to $180,000. Same pattern as Cassandra, Virex said quietly. Identical pattern. And look at this. Reaper pulled up another file. Rebecca's sister, Michelle Garrett, filed a report with Pennsylvania State Police 3 days after Rebecca's death. Claimed Rebecca had been planning to divorce Wade. Claimed Rebecca was afraid of him. Claimed the accident was suspicious. What happened to the report? Dismissed. Investigation concluded. Brake line showed signs of corrosion. Could be sabotage. Could be age. Accident reconstruction noted Rebecca's car was accelerating before hitting the guardrail, not braking. But Wade had an alibi. Poker game with buddies. All confirmed. Case closed as accidental death. Wade collected $180,000. The room went quiet. So, we're looking at a pattern killer, smoke set from his position near the wall, laptop balanced on his knees. 2 wives, both January, both suspicious circumstances, both with insurance payouts. Rebecca got $180,000. Cassandra's policy is $475,000. He escalated, Reaper said. Bigger payout. Bolder method. And this time he almost got away with it. Who else knew? Virex asked. The girlfriend, Bryn. Who else? Smoke's fingers flew across his keyboard. Bryn Michelle Colton, 32 years old, dental hygienist at Scranton Smiles Dental. Wade's been seeing her for 11 months. I'm in her text messages now. Legally, Virex interrupted. She left her Facebook logged in on a public computer at the library. Her texts sync. I'm just reading what's already accessible. Smoke's voice was carefully neutral. January 14th, Bryn to Wade. Can't wait for Monday. New life, here we come. January 17th, Bryn to Wade. Weather's perfect. She won't last the night. Every man in that room heard it. Written evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. Screenshot everything. VREX ordered. Time-stamped. We're documenting a conspiracy. Already done. And there's more. Smoke pulled up bank records. Joint account in Wade and Cassandra's names. Opened August 2023 with $263,000 deposit. Cassandra's settlement from her first husband's death. Current balance, $41,000. $222,000 missing. He switched screens. Wade's personal account separate. Cassandra didn't have access. Shows deposits over 19 months totaling $187,000. Exact match to the missing settlement money. Withdrawals show Mohegan Sun Casino $73,000 in gambling losses. Lease payments for apartment in Bryn's name $31,000. 2024 Ram truck down payment $58,000. Harley-Davidson cash purchase $22,000. The math was damning. Wade had stolen his wife's money, spent it on gambling and his mistress, taken out a massive life insurance policy, then tried to kill her to collect. We need witnesses, VREX said. People who saw the system fail. They came in over the next hour. Patricia and Owens arrived first. 73 years old, Cassandra's neighbor at 1847 Ridgemont Trail. She walked into the waiting room, clutching her purse with arthritic hands, looking at the assembled bikers with fear that slowly shifted to something like relief. Mrs. Owens, Reaper said gently, gesturing to a chair they'd set apart for privacy. Thank you for coming. I know it's late. Is she alive? Patricia asked. Immediately. Cassandra, is she? She's alive. Critical, but stable. We found her in time. Patricia's face crumpled. She sat heavily. Thank God. Thank God. I should have heard screaming. October 28th, around 9 p.m. I heard a woman screaming next door. I called police. But when they came, Wade answered the door, all calm and friendly. Said Cassandra had dropped something. Startled herself. Officer talked to them separately. But Cassandra said everything was fine. Wade was standing right there in the doorway watching her. Of course, she said everything was fine. Her hands shook. I saw bruises on her wrists when she'd waved to me from the window. Purple marks like someone had grabbed her. But every time I asked if she was okay, she said yes every single time. Why didn't you push harder? Reaper asked. Not accusatory, just gathering information. Because I didn't want to make it worse, Patricia's voice broke. Because I'm 73 years old and deaf in one ear, and I thought if I interfered, Wade might hurt her more. I thought the police would handle it. But they didn't. They filed a report and left, and nothing changed. Reaper recorded every word. Reverend Mark Holland came next. 58 years old, pastor of Pine Ridge Community Church. He looked physically ill when he walked into the hospital waiting room and saw 60 Hell's Angels bikers waiting. I was told Cassandra Bennett is here, he said quietly. She is, VREX said. And you gotta tell us why your church failed her. Holland flinched, but he sat and he talked. Cassandra came to me 17 weeks ago, September 10th, after Sunday service. She waited until everyone else had left. Then she said, Pastor Mark, Wade is hurting me. I am scared. I told her I'd talk to Wade. Arrange marriage counseling. He rubbed his face. Wade's been a member for 15 years. Deacon helps with men's ministry breakfast monthly. Everyone respects him. So when I pulled him aside, told him Cassandra had concerns, he looked genuinely hurt. Said Cassandra had been unstable since her first husband died. That grief was affecting her judgment, that she needed support, not accusations. He agreed to counseling. Said he wanted to help his wife heal. And you believed him? Reaper said, I believe him because I've known Wade for 15 years and I've known Cassandra for 19 months. Because Wade volunteers and tithes and shows up every Sunday. Because I couldn't reconcile the man I knew with what Cassandra was saying. Holland's voice dropped to a whisper. I told Cassandra that marriage is sacred, that they should work through difficulties, that prayer would give her strength. She never came back to church, and I told myself it was because she was embarrassed, not because she was trapped. He looked at Virex. I chose to believe a man over a terrified woman. That's on me, and I'll carry that for the rest of my life. The third witness was Denise Marie Harmon, 41 years old, Pike County Child Protective Services investigator. She arrived with red-rimmed eyes and a case file folder clutched in her hands. I got the call December 1st, Denise said, her voice flat. Violet Bennett told her school counselor, "My stepdad hurt my mommy." Mandated reporter counselor filed. I was assigned the investigation. She opened the folder, showed the paperwork. I visited the home December 3rd. Wade Garrett answered, invited me in immediately. Very cooperative. Said he loved his family. That Cassandra had been struggling with grief since her first husband died. That Violet had a vivid imagination. Lots of children do after losing a parent. He was calm, reasonable, concerned about his stepdaughter's emotional state. Did you interview Cassandra separately? Reaper asked. Yes, privately. In the kitchen, while Wade was in the living room, I asked if anyone was hurting her. She said no. I asked if she felt safe. She said yes. I asked if Wade had ever been physical with her. She said no. Denise's voice cracked, but her hands were shaking the whole time. And when Wade called from the living room asking if we wanted coffee, she flinched. Actually flinched at the sound of his voice. And you still closed the case. I found no evidence of abuse, no visible injuries, no admission from the victim. Violet appeared well cared for, clean clothes, healthy weight, up to date on vaccinations. By policy, I had to close it. I marked it unfounded and moved on. She looked at Reaper with hollow eyes. I process 187 cases a year. I have 20 minutes per home visit. I'm supposed to identify abuse, document evidence, coordinate services, and close cases quickly so I can move to the next family in crisis. The system isn't designed to catch sophisticated abusers. It's designed to catch the obvious ones and close everything else. How many cases do you close as unfounded? Virex asked quietly. 91%. The number hung in the air like poison because 91% of the time, I can't prove abuse. Even when I suspect it, even when I see warning signs, even when every instinct says something's wrong, I can't prove it. So I close it. She set the folder down. Cassandra Bennett needed me to be brave enough to push harder, to trust my instincts over my caseload, to risk being wrong rather than risk leaving a victim trapped. I wasn't brave enough, and she almost died because of it. By 3:47 a.m., the case against Wade Thomas Garrett was more than compelling. It was damning. 2 insurance policies on 2 dead wives, 6 years apart, both in January, both with suspicious circumstances. Financial records showing systematic theft of Cassandra's settlement money, $187,000 spent on gambling, mistress, personal purchases, text messages proving conspiracy between Wade and girlfriend Bryn. Medical documentation of abuse, cracked rib, rope burns, torn fingernail, frostbite from being locked in a metal chest for 11 hours. Witness testimony from neighbor, pastor, CPS investigator, all documenting system failures and warning signs ignored. Violet's testimony about the overheard phone conversation detailing the murder plan. And Cassandra herself, alive, able to testify. Reaper made one phone call to a former colleague who'd made it to the FBI. Special Agent Marcus Chun, 23 years with the Bureau, specializing in domestic violence homicides. Marcus, it's Reaper. I've got something you need to see tonight. Now, within 40 minutes, Agent Chun arrived at Pike County Hospital with 2 other agents and a prosecutor from the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. They walked into the waiting room, full of Hell's Angels, and didn't flinch. Agent Chun looked at Virex. Show me what you've got. For the next 90 minutes, they reviewed everything. Every document, every photograph, every witness statement, every piece of evidence compiled by bikers who'd spent their night rescuing a woman. The system had failed 4 separate times. When they finished, Agent Chun looked at the assembled brothers with something like awe. This is the most thoroughly documented domestic violence case I've seen in 23 years, he said quietly. You've done our job for us. We did our job, Virex corrected. Your job is making sure Wade Garrett never sees daylight again. Where is he now? The prosecutor asked. Last confirmed location, his house. 1847, Ridgemont Trail. He doesn't know Violet escaped. Doesn't know his wife is alive. Doesn't know we're coming. Agent Chin nodded, turned to the other agents. Let's go pick him up. When federal agents and Pennsylvania State Police arrived at 1847, Ridgemont Trail at 5:18 a.m., 11 hours, 31 minutes after Wade Garrett had sealed his wife in a metal chest, they found him in the garage, changing the oil in his truck, wearing old jeans and a gray t-shirt, grease on his hands, talk radio playing from a portable speaker, humming along to a commercial about winter tire sales. The same hands that had locked Cassandra in a freezing chest. The same truck he'd driven her to the woods. The same man who'd planned every detail of her death, doing ordinary Saturday night garage maintenance like it was the most normal thing in the world, because to him, it was normal. Agent Chin showed his badge. Wade Thomas Garrett. Wade looked up confused. Yes. What's this about? You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, felony assault, financial exploitation, and violation of protective order statute. Wade's face went blank. I think there's been a mistake. No mistake. Hands behind your back. They read him his rights in the garage while Wade's truck radio played cheerful advertisements. Handcuffed him while grease was still wet on his palms. Walked him out to the federal vehicle while neighbors' lights came on and curtains twitched. The man who tried to kill his wife for insurance money, who'd killed his first wife 6 years earlier, who'd charmed everyone, church, police, CPS, neighbors into thinking he was a good man. Arrested while changing his truck's oil. Monsters wear ordinary faces. At Pike County Hospital, VREX gathered the Brotherhood in the waiting room. Dawn was breaking outside. Gray light through the windows. Brothers who'd been awake for over 24 hours, who'd ridden through below-zero temperatures, who'd searched frozen woods for a woman they'd never met. Wade Garrett's in custody, VREX announced. Federal charges, attempted murder, conspiracy, kidnapping, assault, financial crimes. Prosecutor says he's looking at multiple life sentences with no parole possibility. What about the girlfriend? Gunner asked. Bryn Colton arrested simultaneously at her apartment. Conspiracy to commit murder. Accessory before the fact. Text messages sealed her fate. Rebecca, another brother asked. The first wife. Pennsylvania State Police reopening the investigation. With Wade in custody and evidence of pattern behavior, they're treating Rebecca's death as homicide. Not accidental homicide. The room went quiet. Then VREX turned to face all assembled brothers. 60 men who'd answer a midnight call, who dropped everything to save a stranger. Brothers, his voice carried. We just taken down a man who killed one wife, nearly killed another, and would have kept going. We exposed corruption in CPS, failures in law enforcement, negligence in religious institutions. We prove that when the system fails, we step in, not with violence, not with revenge, but with justice. He paused, all in favor of considering this mission complete and turning full authority over to federal prosecution. For exactly 4 seconds, silence. Just the distant beep of hospital monitors and the whisper of heating vents and the collective breath of 60 men waiting to vote. Then every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation, not a single dissenting voice. 60 men voting unanimously to trust the system they'd spent a lifetime distrusting because a mother and daughter deserve the protection of law, not the chaos of revenge. Unanimous, VREX said, Agent Chun, he's yours. But we're staying until Cassandra's stable, until Violet's reunited with her mother, until we know they're safe. I wouldn't expect anything less, Agent Chun said. Cassandra Bennett woke up 47 hours after being pulled from that metal chest. Woke to white ceiling tiles and the steady beep of monitors and warm blankets tucked around her shoulders. Woke to her daughter asleep in a chair beside the hospital bed. Small hand wrapped around 3 of Cassandra's fingers. Woke to a Hell's Angel sitting in the corner reading a motorcycle magazine. Patches on his vest reading track. She tried to speak. Her throat was raw, damaged from 11 hours of shallow breathing in below-zero temperatures. Track looked up immediately, set down the magazine, moved to the bedside with careful, non-threatening movements. "Easy," he said quietly. "You're safe. You're at Pike County Hospital. Your daughter's right here." Wade Garrett is in federal custody, facing multiple life sentences. "You're both protected. Nobody's going to hurt you again." Cassandra's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Violet, at her daughter's face, peaceful in sleep for the first time in 19 months. "She saved you," Track said gently. "Ran 2.3 miles barefoot in 12 degrees weather to find help. Bravest thing I've ever seen a 7-year-old do. She's a warrior. Your daughter gets it from her mother, I think." The next 72 hours unfolded with the same military precision the brothers had shown in the woods. Dr. Kowalski monitored Cassandra's recovery. Pneumonia in both lungs requiring 4 antibiotics. Severe malnutrition requiring carefully managed refeeding protocols. Frostbite on fingers and toes that would heal but required monitoring. The cracked rib, the rope burns, the torn fingernail, all documented, photographed, added to the mountain of evidence that would keep Wade Garrett in prison for the rest of his natural life. But medical care was only the beginning. Wrench, the brother who ran the club's legitimate auto repair garage, personally handled the logistics everyone else overlooked, filed emergency protective orders, coordinated with victim advocates, arranged for Cassandra's belongings to be retrieved from 1847 Ridgemont Trail by federal agents, cataloged, delivered to a new location Wade would never know. That new location was a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a renovated building in Scranton, 47 miles from Pine Ridge Township. Rent-controlled security system installed by Smoke. First month's rent and security deposit paid from the Hells Angels Brotherhood Emergency Fund. The same fund that had helped Mia Carter 9 months earlier. The same fund that existed precisely for moments like this. Doc Patricia visited daily, sat with Cassandra when the nightmares came, because they did come violent and vivid, leaving her gasping and shaking at 3 a.m. Patricia taught her breathing exercises, talked her through panic attacks, explained that healing wasn't linear, that trauma lived in the body even after the threat was gone, that getting better meant facing the fear instead of burying it. "You survived," Patricia said one afternoon while Violet was at a supervised playroom session with a child psychologist. "Not just the chest, not just that one night. You survived 19 months of systematic abuse. You kept your daughter safe. You fought when he tried to make you disappear. That's not weakness. That's strength most people will never have to find." Cassandra's voice, still rough from cold damage, came out barely above a whisper. "I should have left sooner. The average victim tries to leave 7 times before succeeding," Patricia said gently. "Because leaving is when abusers escalate to taking lives. You knew that. Your instincts kept you alive until someone could help. That's not failure. That's survival." Reaper worked with federal prosecutors and Pennsylvania State Police, built timelines, coordinated witness interviews, ensured that every piece of evidence, financial records, text messages, medical documentation, testimony from Violet, Cassandra, neighbors, church members, CPS workers, was organized into a prosecution package so airtight no defense attorney could crack it. Wade Garrett was charged with attempted murder, Cassandra, conspiracy to commit murder with Bryn Colton, kidnapping, felony assault, multiple counts, financial exploitation, theft of $187,000 marital assets, insurance fraud, violation of protection order statutes. In the reopened investigation of Rebecca Garrett's death, additional charges were pending. Murder in the first degree, insurance fraud, evidence tampering bail was set at $2.5 million. Wade, who'd stolen $187,000 and had nothing to show for it but gambling debt and a girlfriend facing 20 years in federal prison, couldn't make it. He would await trial in custody, and given evidence, trial was expected to be short, 3 days maximum. The prosecutor predicted jury deliberation under 2 hours. Bryn Colton offered a plea deal in exchange for testimony against Wade, took it immediately. Conspiracy to commit murder with cooperation. 18 years instead of life. She would testify about every conversation, every plan, every detail of how Wade had described getting rid of Cassandra the same way he'd handled Rebecca. The girlfriend who'd agreed to split $500,000 got 18 years in federal prison. The man who'd planned 2 deaths got multiple life sentences with no possibility of parole. Justice wasn't always perfect, but sometimes it worked exactly as designed. Track, the former Army Ranger, father of twin girls, took Violet under his wing, taught her that men could be safe, that big, scary-looking guys could be gentle, that protectors came in all forms. He and his daughters invited Violet to their house for supervised playdates. Let her see what normal family life looked like. Let her remember that not every father figure was a threat. Smoke set up a secure laptop for Cassandra, showed her how to access her new bank account, one Wade had never touched, funded by the settlement money federal investigators had recovered from Wade's hidden accounts. Showed her how to monitor her credit, how to lock down her identity, how to protect herself digitally the way the brothers were protecting her physically. And Riggs kept his promise. On the day Cassandra was discharged from the hospital, he returned the Spider-Man figure to Violet, knelt in the hospital parking lot so they were eye level, placed it gently in her small hand. "You were brave," he said simply. "You saved your mom's life, and we kept our promise. She's safe. You're both safe. And your family now you need anything. Anything you call, day or night, someone will answer. Someone will help. That's what family means." Violet looked at the plastic toy, at the chipped paint and bent leg, at the symbol of hope that had somehow turned out to be real. Then she handed it back to Riggs. "You keep it," she said, her 7-year-old voice clear and certain. "Because you're my protector now, and Spider-Man belongs with protectors." Riggs's eyes went bright. He closed his massive fist around the toy, nodded once, couldn't speak. 6 months is both forever and no time at all when you're learning to live again after 19 months of captivity. On a warm July afternoon, 6 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days after a barefoot child ran through below-zero temperatures to ask strangers for help, Cassandra Bennett stood in a Pike County courtroom for Wade Thomas Garrett's sentencing hearing. The trial had lasted 2.5 days. The jury had deliberated for 93 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, conspiracy, kidnapping, assault, financial crimes in the parallel case for Rebecca Garrett's death, guilty of murder in the first degree. Now with the courtroom packed, 60 Hell's Angels in the gallery, Violet sitting between Cassandra and Doc Patricia, federal agents lining the walls. The judge prepared to deliver sentence. Wade sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, face expressionless. The charming volunteer firefighter, the trusted church deacon, the good guy everyone had believed, stripped down to what he'd always been underneath. A predator who'd taken 2 wives' lives for profit. Judge Sharon Westfield, the same judge who denied Cassandra's protection from abuse petition 8 months earlier, who now had to live with that failure, looked at Wade with open contempt. "Mr. Garrett," Judge Westfield said, her voice carrying through the silent courtroom, "you use your position of trust as a first responder, a church member, a family man to prey on vulnerable women. You took Rebecca Garrett's life in 2019 and collected $180,000. You attempted to take Cassandra Bennett's life in 2025 for $475,000. You are a calculated, remorseless predator who saw human beings as financial opportunities." She paused. "For the attempted murder of Cassandra Bennett, life in prison without possibility of parole. For conspiracy to commit murder, 25 years consecutive. For kidnapping, 15 years consecutive. For the murder of Rebecca Garrett, life in prison without possibility of parole." Wade's face didn't change, didn't react, just stared straight ahead like this was happening to someone else. "You will spend the remainder of your natural life in federal custody," Judge Westfield continued. "You will never again have the opportunity to harm another woman. This court hopes that the victims you sought to destroy find peace, knowing you will die in prison." She brought the gavel down. The sound echoed like finality. Cassandra felt Violet's hand squeeze hers, felt Patricia's arm around her shoulders, felt 60 Hell's Angels bikers standing in silent witness behind her, felt for the first time in 19 months like she could breathe. This story isn't really about bikers or patches or motorcycles rumbling through frozen Pennsylvania woods at midnight. It's about a 7-year-old girl who had every reason to freeze in fear, who'd watched her mother suffer for 19 months, who'd seen 4 different authority figures fail to help, choosing to act anyway, choosing to run 2.3 miles barefoot through below-zero temperatures because staying silent meant her mother would not survive. It's about a mother who threw a wedding ring through a truck window as a final act of hope, who scratched at a metal chest lid for 11 hours refusing to give up, who'd survived systematic isolation, financial control, physical abuse, and institutional failure only to face a murder plot designed to look like accidental exposure. It's about 140 men who could have chosen violence and revenge, but chose justice and patience instead, who understood that real strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how carefully you can document evidence, how thoroughly you can build a case, how perfectly you can hand everything to authorities who will finally listen. There are Cassandras everywhere. Women trapped in relationships that look normal from the outside. Women whose abusers are volunteer firefighters and church deacons and respected businessmen. Women who try to ask for help and get told marriage is sacred, or he seems like a good guy, or there's no evidence, and there are violets everywhere. Children watching their mothers suffer. Children who know something's wrong, but don't know who to tell because every adult they've trusted has failed them. You don't need a leather vest to be a protector. You don't need a motorcycle or a patch or a Brotherhood of 140. You just need to care enough to act when you see wrong. Pay attention. Listen when someone says they're afraid, even if they smile while saying it. Believe victims even when abusers are charming. Ask uncomfortable questions. Push back when authority figures dismiss concerns. Be the person who doesn't accept everything's fine when every instinct says it's not. Stand in the gap between a victim and the system that's failing them. Because here's what Violet proved that frozen January night. Sometimes the most powerless person in a room holds the key to saving someone else's entire world. Sometimes a barefoot child running through snow is braver than every adult who looked away. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, that person finds a family waiting to catch them when they fall. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember that real protectors still exist. Drop a comment telling us who your protector was or who you protected when nobody else would. Let us know you stand with Cassandra, with Violet, with every person who refuses to stay silent when they see wrong. Because this world needs more people who run toward danger instead of away from it. And maybe, just maybe, that person could be you. The sun set over Scranton on a warm September evening, 9 months after a child's bare feet left red prints in snow, turning the sky orange and pink. In a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor, Cassandra Bennett helped Violet with homework at the kitchen table. Math worksheets, reading comprehension, normal 2nd grade work. Through the window came the distant sound of motorcycles, the brothers on their evening ride. A reminder that protection was always one phone call away. Violet looked up from her worksheet. Mom, can Riggs come to my birthday party next month? Of course, sweetheart. And Track and Dot Patricia and Virex. Cassandra smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes, the kind she hadn't been able to manage for 19 months. We can invite the whole club if you want. I want that. Violet returned to her math, added, because they're family. They are family. On the corner of the kitchen counter sat a small plastic Spider-Man figure. The one Violet had given Riggs. The one he'd returned after Wade's sentencing. The one that now stood guard over their new life. Paint chipped, one leg bent. A symbol that impossible hope sometimes turn out to be real. Cassandra picked it up, held it for a moment, set it back down. Tomorrow she'd take Violet to her therapy appointment. Next week, she'd start her new job, administrative assistant at a law firm that specialized in domestic violence cases because she wanted to help other women the way she'd been helped. In 2 months, she'd file for divorce from her first husband's estate to officially reclaim her maiden name. Tonight, she'd finish homework with her daughter, make dinner in a kitchen that belonged to her, sleep in a bed in a warm room in a safe place where no one controlled her movements or monitored her breathing or planned her death. And somewhere in Pennsylvania, another woman who needed help would hopefully find her own voice, her own protector, her own impossible salvation. Because Violet Bennett had proven something that cold January night when she ran barefoot through snow with a silver ring clutched in her fist. Miracles don't always come from heaven. Sometimes they come from a child with purple pajamas and the courage to whisper 6 impossible words to a stranger. Mommy's in a box. Please help.